Have you ever looked at your bank account, exhausted after another grueling month of trading your life force for a paycheck, and felt a cold, creeping sensation that someone, somewhere, is quietly draining your life away? You are not crazy. You are being robbed, entirely legally, while you sleep. The numbers on your screen might stay the same, but an invisible thief is stripping away your future, turning your hard-earned savings into worthless paper. Welcome to the greatest illusion ever orchestrated in human history. Money Decoded warmly welcomes you to a journey that will forever alter how you perceive reality. Before we tear down the walls of this financial matrix, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel. Your subscription is the vital fuel that empowers us to keep exposing the brutal truths they desperately want to keep hidden from you. Since the day you took your first breath, a singular, insidious formula has been hammered into your skull by your parents, your teachers, and the very fabric of society. Work hard, secure a stable job, pinch every penny, bury your savings in a bank, and eventually buy a house to live happily ever after. You did exactly that. Millions of us did exactly that. We grind day and night, auctioning off our time, our health, and our fleeting youth, all just to watch a few digital numbers tick upward at the end of the month. But what is the actual result? You look at that balance, you look out at the real world, and a bitter truth crashes over you. The more fiercely you save, the poorer you fundamentally become. The harder you run on this endless treadmill, the faster the horizon of financial freedom recedes into the distance, leaving you utterly paralyzed. Look up, far above the grinding gears of the middle class, to the apex of the financial pyramid. Do the elites, the billionaires, the phantom architects of the global economy follow the rules they so generously hand down to you? Absolutely not. The financial elite would rather die than hoard their wealth in a savings account. They are monumental debtors, carrying the weight of billions of dollars in borrowed capital. What is the core contradiction here? Why are the poor and the middle class conditioned to fear debt like the plague and worship the illusion of saving, while the richest entities on the planet wield debt as the ultimate weapon to clone their empires 1,000 times over? That crumpled paper bill in your wallet, the very thing you bled and sweat to earn, is not a store of true value. It is a sophisticated instrument of wealth transfer, a cleverly disguised IOU engineered by the rule makers to silently siphon your life's work directly into their overflowing pockets. There is a brutal, undeniable line drawn in the sand. On one side are you and I, the masses who wake up to the blaring alarm clock at 7 a.m., suffocate in gridlocked traffic, surrender 8 hours a day to a cubicle, pay our income taxes to the last cent, and tremble at the mere mention of inflation. On the other side are they, the untouchables who are never shackled to a paycheck, who own hard assets rather than depreciating cash, who write the very financial laws the rest of the world is forced to obey. I need you to understand something deeply profound right now. The system is not broken. It is functioning with terrifying perfection. It simply was never designed to serve you. It was designed to turn you into a biological battery, a machine generating liquidity to keep their empire running. I am not here to coddle your ego. This is not another hollow lecture telling you to skip your morning coffee to become a millionaire. This is the red pill. This is a sledgehammer swung with full force directly at the naive, obsolete dogmas that have been planted in your subconscious for generations. The time has come to obliterate the comforting delusion of the safe and quiet life. We are about to begin a ruthless autopsy, peeling back the thick layers of camouflage that hide the true nature of the financial matrix. If you are not prepared to face the agonizing reality that everything you were taught about money is a spectacular lie, close this video now and go back to your peaceful slumber. But if you choose to stay, brace yourself, because your awakening begins this very second. To truly awaken from this engineered slumber, you must first trace the invisible chains that bind you directly back to the very paper you hold in your hands. Consider what money actually represents in its purest, most fundamental form. It is an entirely physical manifestation of your life energy. When you spend 40 hours a week at a job you likely despise, you are converting your finite, unrecoverable time on this earth into a universal medium of exchange. You are trading heartbeats for digits on a screen. Therefore, if the value of that medium is secretly diluted, It is not merely your purchasing power that is being stolen. It is your literal lifespan being siphoned away into the ether. This is the dark alchemy of fiat currency, a system unbacked by gold, unbacked by reality, and entirely sustained by collective hallucination and government decree. There was a time when money was tied to physical constraints, tethered to the laws of thermodynamics through gold and silver, meaning a government could not spend what it did not possess. That anchor was deliberately severed, unleashing a global experiment where a select group of unelected officials can now summon trillions of dollars into existence with nothing more than a keystroke. Imagine playing a board game where the banker can arbitrarily print infinite money for themselves and their friends whenever they are losing, while you are strictly bound to earn your cash by rolling the dice and moving piece by piece. Inflation is not a tragic accident of nature or an unavoidable economic weather event, as the pundits on financial news networks would have you believe. Inflation is a highly calculated, regressive tax levied most heavily against the poor and the middle class. When central banks flood the economy with fresh currency to bail out failing institutions or fund endless deficits, they do not create new value. They merely steal a fraction of the purchasing power from every single dollar resting in your bank account, transferring that value to themselves and the mega corporations that stand closest to the money printer. This is why the cost of housing, healthcare, and basic survival seems to perpetually slip beyond your grasp, no matter how many promotions you get. You are trying to store your life force in a melting ice cube. The elites know that fiat currency is a collapsing star, which is why they refuse to hold it. They use cash as a temporary bridge to acquire real, tangible power, viewing the hoarding of paper money not as a virtue of financial prudence, but as an act of sheer economic suicide. You have been taught to worship the dollar, to save it, to protect it, while the architects of the system treat it as disposable trash, burning it rapidly to build unshakable fortresses of wealth. Once you realize that cash is designed to perpetually melt, the baffling, contradictory behavior of the global elite suddenly crystallizes into a terrifyingly logical strategy. You have been explicitly conditioned to view debt as a moral failing, a heavy shackle to be avoided at all costs, or at best, a necessary evil to buy a television or a car you cannot truly afford. The system thrives on your fear of owing money because that fear keeps you conservative, compliant, and desperate for the safety of a biweekly paycheck. Yet, if you peer behind the curtain, you will witness billionaires and massive corporations operating on levels of debt that would induce a panic attack in the average citizen. The profound difference lies in the fact that the masses use debt to consume, while the masters use debt to acquire. When you swipe your credit card for a depreciating liability, a vacation, luxury clothing, or a new vehicle, you are chaining your future labor to a past desire. You are promising the bank that you will surrender tomorrow's time to pay for yesterday's dopamine hit, plus interest. This is consumer debt, the graveyard of the middle class. The wealthy, however, do not borrow to buy liabilities. They borrow to purchase cash-flowing assets. They walk into a bank, secure a multi-million-dollar loan at a mathematically suppressed interest rate, and use that fake, printed money to buy an apartment complex, a massive business, or thousands of acres of agricultural land. The revenue generated by that newly acquired asset pays off the bank's loan, covers the interest, and funnels pure passive profit directly into the elite's pockets. They have effectively used other people's money, specifically the money you diligently placed into your savings account, to enrich themselves without risking a single dime of their own true capital. Furthermore, our entire tax code is fundamentally rigged to reward this exact behavior. If you work a traditional job, you are taxed the moment you earn, taxed when you spend, and taxed on what you manage to save. But borrowed money is entirely tax-free. When an elite billionaire needs cash to fund their lavish lifestyle, they do not sell their assets and trigger massive capital gains taxes. Instead, they simply take out a loan against their vast portfolios, receiving millions in untaxed liquid cash. They live entirely on borrowed funds, while their underlying assets continue to inflate in value, vastly outpacing the cost of the interest. Debt is the magical lever that allows them to bypass the tax system entirely. It is a brilliant, ruthless mechanism where your savings become their leverage, and your financial terror becomes the very foundation of their infinite expansion. If debt is the weapon of choice for the financial elite, then hard, irreplaceable assets are the impenetrable fortresses from which they launch their endless siege on the global economy. Society has played a cruel linguistic trick on you by deliberately blurring the line between an asset and a liability. You were told that your primary residence, the car in your driveway, and the expensive watch on your wrist are your greatest assets. From a banker's perspective, this is an absolute masterclass in deception. To strip away the academic jargon and look at it through the unforgiving lens of cash flow, the definition is brutally simple. An asset puts money into your pocket regardless of whether you wake up or stay in bed, while a liability takes money out of your pocket every single month. Your house, with its crushing mortgage, property taxes, insurance premiums, and endless maintenance costs, is constantly extracting your wealth. It is the bank's asset, not yours. You are merely the caretaker, paying them for the privilege of keeping the rain off your head. The true game of financial supremacy is not about accumulating flashy consumer goods to impress people you despise. It is a relentless, global game of monopoly where the only objective is to control scarce resources. The ownership class understands that the fiat currency system will inevitably inflate everything around them. Therefore, they aggressively convert their melting paper into unprintable realities: commercial real estate, mineral rights, agricultural land, essential infrastructure, and equity in powerful corporations. We are rapidly transitioning into a neo-feudalistic society, a world distinctly divided into those who own the underlying fabric of reality and those who merely rent it. The elites want you to own absolutely nothing. They want you to subscribe to your entertainment, lease your vehicle, rent your living space, and pay a monthly fee for your software, effectively turning your entire existence into a recurring revenue stream for their portfolios. You are being conditioned to accept a life of perpetual renting, mistakenly believing it offers convenience and freedom, when in truth, it strips you of all economic sovereignty. By the time you realize you have spent a lifetime paying for the privilege of existing without acquiring a single piece of the board, the game will be over. The ultimate truth of wealth creation is that nobody becomes truly free by saving their way to prosperity. Freedom is exclusively reserved for those who conquer their fear, stop buying shiny liabilities, and begin accumulating the very assets that the rest of the world is desperately forced to rent. Standing face to face with this monolithic system of control, recognizing the sheer, overwhelming gravity of a machine designed to harvest your entire existence, the initial human urge is deeply paralyzing. Anger flares up. You want to scream at the politicians, curse the central bankers, and demand that the system be dismantled or reformed to finally be fair. But here is the most agonizing, liberating truth you will ever hear. They do not care about your anger, and the system will never voluntarily reform itself. Waiting for a savior to descend from the political heavens and legislate your financial freedom is the ultimate form of victimhood. The greatest rebellion you can ever mount against a system that wants you perpetually poor, stressed, and compliant is to systematically educate yourself and learn to play their game with lethal precision. You cannot change the direction of the macroeconomic wind, nor can you stop the central banks from printing their currency into oblivion. But you possess the absolute power to adjust your sails. True financial awakening is not about overthrowing governments. It is about violently overthrowing the obsolete belief systems deeply rooted inside your own mind. It begins the moment you stop blaming external forces for your empty bank account and take brutal, terrifying ownership of your financial destiny. You must pivot from being a passive consumer, mindlessly digesting the content, products, and debt they feed you, to becoming a strategic producer and investor. This journey demands an ego death. It requires you to look at the shiny new car your neighbor just bought, not with envy, but with the quiet understanding that they have just shackled themselves to another decade of corporate servitude. It demands that you aggressively protect your time, fiercely guard your remaining capital, and begin slowly, methodically acquiring assets, no matter how small at first. Buy a fraction of a business, invest in immutable ledgers, secure a piece of real estate, or build a digital asset that generates cash flow while you sleep. The matrix only has power over you as long as you rely on it to feed you. The moment you build your own independent streams of sustenance, the invisible chains snap. You are standing at a profound crossroads. You can click away, retreat to the comforting warmth of ignorance, and continue trading your irreplaceable life for a currency that is designed to die. Or you can swallow the bitter pill of reality, accept that the game is entirely rigged, and choose to learn the rulebook of the elite. The path to sovereignty is brutally lonely, paved with risk, doubt, and immense sacrifice. But on the other side of that suffering lies the only true freedom this world has left to offer. The alarm has sounded. The camouflage has been stripped away. The choice of whether you remain a biological battery or step into the ranks of the ownership class is now entirely yours. In conclusion, the financial ecosystem you were born into is not a naturally occurring phenomenon, but a meticulously constructed labyrinth designed to extract your most finite resource, time. By understanding that fiat currency is a melting ice cube engineered to dilute your life's energy, you can finally see the global economy for what it truly is. The elite do not operate by the same rules they preach to the masses. While you are taught to fear debt and stockpile depreciating paper, they wield borrowed money as a tax-free lever to accumulate scarce cash-flowing assets, cementing their position on the monopoly board. We are accelerating toward a neo-feudal reality where you will rent everything and own nothing, unless you actively choose to rewrite your financial programming. Anger at this rigged architecture is a natural human response, but it is ultimately useless. The only genuine rebellion is radical personal responsibility. You must undergo a financial ego death, shedding the consumerist mindset that equates flashy liabilities with success, and step into the role of a strategic accumulator of real wealth. No politician or institution is coming to save you. Your financial sovereignty rests entirely in your own hands. By choosing financial education over comforting ignorance and asset accumulation over temporary dopamine hits, you can systematically break the invisible chains of the system. The matrix only controls those who depend on it. Now that the veil has been lifted, the choice to remain a pawn or become a player is yours alone. Profound lesson learned. Financial freedom is never granted by the system. It must be systematically engineered by the individual. The traditional path of saving fiat currency and working endlessly for a paycheck is a mathematical trap designed to enrich the architects of the economy. True sovereignty is achieved only when you stop playing the victim. Understand the critical difference between assets that feed you and liabilities that bleed you, and transition from a lifelong consumer into a relentless owner. Practical application. Stop feeding the machine. Immediately halt the purchase of depreciating liabilities to impress others. Cancel unnecessary subscriptions. Avoid high-interest consumer debt, and stop tying your future labor to yesterday's desires. Shift to asset accumulation. Redirect your melting fiat currency into tangible, cash-flowing realities. Start small if you must. Buy fractional shares of businesses, index funds, real estate, or immutable digital assets. Invest in financial literacy. Dedicate time every week to understanding macroeconomics, taxes, and how the wealthy leverage debt safely. Your most powerful defense against inflation is a highly educated mind. Take absolute ownership. Stop complaining about the unfairness of the macroeconomic wind. Adjust your own sails by creating independent streams of income that do not require your physical presence. Question for the community: what is one unnecessary liability you are going to eliminate from your life this week? Or what is the very first real asset you plan to invest in? Please share your thoughts in the comments below so we can all learn and grow from each other's perspectives. If you found value in this message and want to break free from the financial matrix, please hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Your subscription gives us the immense motivation to keep producing deep, eye-opening content for you.